garden in our backyard, and we eat all summer what we can. What we can't eat, we can, and we eat what we can. Next year we're gonna do it all again.
So our next guest is Daniel D'Agostini, and let's see. Daniel, the name of your farm's Abundanza Farms, and actually one thing that Jordan was talking about, nettles, I think that Daniel is going to definitely touch on, and he'll be over here by the couches after this if you want to talk to Daniel. But I'm really excited to hear what he has to share about biodynamics and his biodynamic farm. Thank you so much for being here today, Daniel.
All right. It's wonderful to be here amongst this energy of people. I swim in the same waters as you do and have for a lifetime. My little farm is called Abbondanza. It means abundance in Italian. And it's where I was born. I live on the land that I lived on my whole life. And Justin was saying in permaculture and just in his own way, plants have become friends and you get to know them. And certainly in biodynamics is a concept that embraces all the buzzwords in farming today. It got its roots from Rudolf Steiner's thinking back in the 1920s. On a biodynamic farm, you think of your farm as an organism. And you don't bring anything into it, you create all the fertility within it, from animals and from plants. And in my lifetime, I've gotten to know some plants really well, and I'm still learning about them. You mentioned stinging nettles. They're all just starting to poke back up right now. And they're a wonderful plant. And I'll give somebody this plant. This will go right into the ground. I'm pretty used to the stings, and I'm going to talk about really just some of the plants that you can use directly to heal plants and yourself. The first one I want to talk about is an amazing plant that, particularly any of you little kids out there, if I hold up something like this is a pure crystal. You want to look at that? Look at it. Believe it or not, there's a plant called equisetum, and its roots can dissolve quartz. That's what it does. And there's several types that are around. Most of you probably have seen the equisetum arvens, which has little hairs coming off of each of its junction. And this is a different type of horsetail, hay male, and both of them are part of the species of equisetum. Equisetum is the oldest plant on Earth. It was here before any of the deciduous trees. At one point, they grew up to be 100 feet tall or taller. What's so powerful about it is its roots do dissolve silica in the soil, so pure quartz. It'll break it down. It brings it up through its body, and it's kind of, you think you're looking at dew on the top, but it's really the silica that's coming right back out. It coats itself. The Germans called it pewter herb because you can polish silver with it. It's silica the way I use it. So I have my farm, but I also have certified organic vineyards in the Shenandoah Valley where there's a lot of sulfur used in grapes. People deal with mildew. And I have bees on my property, and it's very difficult because the modern, what I call, there's two types of farmers out there. There's farmers who farm from their soul and their passion, and there's farmers who farm for business to make money. And in the Shenandoah Valley, we have an enormous amount of wealthy people that have put in what I call ego wineries and ego vineyards, and they hire people And those people who come in to work the vineyards really don't want to screw up when they're working for a very rich person. So they sulfur every 14 days. Every 11 to 14 days, they're applying sulfur. And it's not elemental sulfur anymore. This is sulfur that's come from fracking. It's a petroleum product. And bees have a hard time with that. And why are they sulfuring? Well, they're sulfuring to deal with mildew. This beautiful plant right here takes care of mildew. This is my pot that I put on my stove. I fill it with water, and this is what you can do. You can take your equisetum, doesn't matter which variety, the variety that's growing with all the little arms coming out of it, or this one, or both, and chop it up. I put about 2 good handfuls of chopped equisetum in here, in this amount of water. First of all, I bring the water to a rolling boil, get it boiling, get it rolling, throw in your equisetum, turn off the heat, let it sit all afternoon. I take this and put it in a 5-gallon bucket and add water. Then I add that to a 100-gallon air blast sprayer that I have on the back of a tractor, and I can do 2 acres with just that. Costs me nothing. I don't have mildew in my vineyards. You can put it on your roses, you can put it on your squash plants. Today is the perigee moon, okay? So the moon doesn't take a full perfect circle around Earth. It's a little bit of a slightly egg shape. And today happens to be perigee when it's at its closest point. The moon is a watery influencer. It's helping with our rain today, too. Those are the days when I look on the calendar. That's another aspect of biodynamics. We recognize that the moon affects germination of seeds. So do the planets. When I planted my tomato seeds on the 5th of March, I think it was, the moon and Saturn were opposite. This happens every 27 and a half days. Earth is here, moon's on one side, Saturn's out there, and we get the reflective qualities of both of those bodies. And it increases strength of your plants. That's why I chose to plant my tomatoes on the 5th of March. And also, that was 3 days before the full moon. So I had all those things working. That's another aspect of biodynamics, is we realize we're part of this bigger system, and we try to take advantage of all those. So equisetum, use it. It's also good for your skin, the silica in it. It's also, you can take it internally. You can drink the tea from equisetum. It's high in sulfur, so sulfur also would tend to cause you to lose water, and it would also lower your blood pressure a little bit too. So this is a beautiful plant that I cultivate and try to encourage because it's a tool for me as a farmer. The nettles, so I have school kids come to my farm all the time, and it's become almost humorous because I tell them, this is going to sting you. It's very good. Again, you can pick it fresh or dry it and bring the water to a boil, put a handful in, let it seep. You can drink it. It's wonderful for you. It's full of iron. It's also sulfur compounds. Gives you strength and vitality. Your plants love it as well. I spray my tomato plants, my peppers, eggplants. Basically everybody in the garden gets a dose of nettles about every 9 days during the growing season. And they are vibrant and green. The same tea you're drinking, just let it cool, spray your plants with it. That's how wonderful it is. And besides that, you can ferment this stuff. And so I have a lot of it growing, and I will take my nettles, I will ferment it. I just put it in a big, it's like a 40-gallon barrel, and I fill it with water, and I put armfuls of nettles in there, stem and all, and I stir it every morning and every afternoon, and pretty soon, within about 3 to 4 days, it begins to really stink. And it's a terrible smell, but you get used to that, and then that starts to go away, and it starts to smell like a barn, and to me that smells really good. And then after about 2 weeks, it goes through a complete process where the smell becomes really nice. And that now is something that you could mix 1 part to 20. It's very powerful, 1 part to 20, and you water your roots of your plants. A little thing to remember, teas are for leaves. So if you make teas, spray on the leaves of your plants in the early morning or in the evening. If you're making a ferment, you don't spray it on the leaves, you put it around the roots. You can also make a fermenting product similar to the nettles, but and I would recommend doing this right now if you've got yourself like a 40-gallon container or so. Go out and find all the strongest weeds on your property. Even if you've got whatever it might be that you consider a weed, pull it out of the ground right now, roots and all, and wash it off a bit, and then just sort of break it up and throw it in the bucket. And now what you're doing is you're mining your soil of all your healthy plants that are living out there that are pulling things up out of the ground. When you ferment them, you're taking all that mineral back, and you've made a mineral bath, and you put that around your property. One of the things we do in biodynamics is our whole philosophy is to build soil, and so we compost. We do vermiculture, vermicomposting, and animal manures are so critical. So the nettles, back to the nettles, that's another thing I do with it. I ferment it. I also do one more thing with it each year, and actually a few of you here have done that with me. We pick the nettles again before it puts out all these little flowers, and I will bury that in a crock pot. So, you know, these unglazed crock pots that you get, got a little hole in the bottom. I'll take about 2 of those, so I put them together, and before I put them together, I pack them with as many nettles as I can get in there, just pure nettle leaves. I don't put the stems in at this point. And then I push them together, and then I bind the whole thing with an old t-shirt, an old cotton shirt, something that's too holy to wear anymore, and so it doesn't come apart, and I bury that in the ground about 18 inches deep, cover it up, and leave it there for 365 days or so. One complete trip. And then I dig it up. And we usually do this as a ritual. And that material now is just nettles that is composted in the earth, receiving the energies that have showered upon it through a whole year. And it's kind of a silky brown feeling material. I put it in a jar, and when I build compost piles, I put that right in the middle of the pile. Nettles is probably the super healer of plants. It benefits everything, and it should benefit your compost as well. Which is another aside. People buy different amendments for their soils and such. It's better not to just sprinkle that on the ground or work it in. It's better to put it in your compost piles. Think of your compost as a stew or a soup, and you want everything that you're going to add to your soil, if you're adding, put it in there and let it all go through that composting and then add that out. Two other plants that you should always have in your gardens, besides the nettles and some form of equisenum as well, is this one. And I'll just pass this around, and it's worth smelling. Share it, and if there's a little kid around, make sure they stick their nose in there. That's chamomile, and I grow lots of chamomile. And again, chamomile, you may know this or you may not, but before refrigeration, chamomile was used to prevent spoilage in meat. It's antifungal, and it's antispasmodic, and so anytime you're dealing with any fungal issue, chamomile tea, the same that you're going to drink. I don't have any curly leaf on my peaches because I spray my peach trees pretty regularly in the spring with chamomile tea. In the winter, I dust them with the oak ashes, and it feels real good. And so anytime you're thinking of fungal kind of problems, chamomile. I just planted, like I said, my tomatoes and all those, and they've all popped up. They're all happy. And so what I do with them now, each morning I walk in and I chamomile. And it makes the greenhouse smell nice, and it keeps them from getting damp off or any little fungal issues. And the other one to add into that, these are dried, but this is yarrow. And yarrow is also antifungal. Achilles melliflores, it helps stop bleeding, so it's been used for stopping of bleeding as well. But for the plants, it's a strengthener, and it's also a wonderful, I always throw a little yarrow in when I do the chamomile spray as well. So I could talk to you forever about the different types of things I do on my farm, but I think growing plants that are going to be useful for yourself, your own body, and for the plants as well is pretty sweet. Oh, so I get distracted. The nettles, so I have school kids come, and here's what begins to happen. I tell them that this is going to sting you, and the crazy kids line up to get stung. They want to know. And it's not going to be that bad. I mean, as Justin said, you can eat this stuff. I put it in any sauce I make. And if you're not wanting to get really stung, just break the little stems down when you pick it, and you're going to be fine. But what is stinging you in the first place? It's formic acid. That's what this plant has, formic acid. That's what a bee has. That's what an ant has. It's that powerful medicine. And so those little stings are something that's not a bad thing. Formic acid is necessary for the formation of protein. So again, are plants that I think the key is just getting to know all your plants over time. I have a lot of people ask me about biodynamics, and it takes a long time to talk about it. I started studying biodynamics in the 1980s, and I feel like I'm just beginning to have it down. This is the best book I've found. I mean, some of the older books are pretty dense and hard, but if you really want to learn the techniques of biodynamics, this is one of the newest publications. It's so well put together. It talks about all the teas you can make and why to make them. I highly, I'll leave this out. You can take a picture with your iPhone or whatever. And that one right there is just a great resource. Okay, I don't want to take everybody's time, but pardon? The name of that book? Biodynamic Gardening. And it's by, who is it by? Monty Walden, Waldin. And they put it together really well, even talking about the apogee and perigee moons and all the things that we talk about in biodynamics. It's so clearly laid out in this book. I would recommend everybody putting it on their shelf, and you know, you're the kind of people that love to glean this information, and there it is. I'll take any questions anybody has. Yes.
I thought I saw something that you have tours on your farm.
I do. So I'm the president of the Farms of Amador, FOA, over in Amador County, and we do farm tours. My webpage is abondanzafarms.com. ABBONDANZAFARMS. And you can go there and learn about the farm. I have an Instagram page. I drop Facebook. I'm not, you know, once in a while I put things out there, and I do welcome people to come. I do tours. I do school tours. I work with Independent High in Sutter Creek and all the schools.
Homeschool children together to come.
I love it. Yeah, we do those sort of things.
Okay.
Yeah, my place is really small. It's 4.7 acres. I'm on a hillside. Like I said, it's where I was born and raised, and I came back home to take care of my mother. She lived to be almost 98, and watched me turn the place into a biodynamic farm and school. I'm a photographer. My studio's there as well, and so it's got its own energy. Abundanza. There's people who have been here who have been to my place, and then I take care of my aunt's property, and that's where I put in organic vineyards and trying to encourage the grape growers of this region to get out of the old traditional poison. You know, they strip spray and they irrigate and they doing everything that's nuts. I dry farm and get really good results. All right, thank you for your book. Yes. The most connected plant? I think it's become equisetum. You know, I just have fallen in love with this wonderful plant, and it's fun to play with too. I mean, you know, you just pop them apart, and in the old days, this was a toy. Kids would then have to put them back together again. So I brought these for all the young kids should definitely take one of these, and the fact that it can dissolve quartz, it just blows my mind, and coats itself with a similar, it's like opal on it. So that's probably, and it's hard, you know, like this is an old lover, you know. I can't just speak highly of this one, and then the chamomile that's going around. No, that's unfair. Right now, well, I'm holding this one, so right now. But garlic, you know, you can't beat garlic and onions either. So. And my salads these days are miner's lettuce and henpeck and wild arugula and anything green that's growing. I have this wonderful cat named Buddy who he found me. He's a feral cat, but he's about 20-pound Maine Coon, and he's actually eaten 3 rattlesnakes and the whole thing, and rabbits. And he likes me to carry him up on the hill. We just go for a slow walk and pause for a moment while he surveys the land and I survey the land. And then we get up to where I'm composting a lot of cow manure, and I used wheat straw bales to hold it all together. Well, the whole thing's growing with wheatgrass, and so the cat Buddy gets down, and the two of us eat wheatgrass together. Pretty nice. You can't swallow the wheatgrass. You just chew it and get all the essence out of it. It's pretty fibrous. But. All right. I don't want to take all the time, but I'll talk to anybody afterwards as much as you want. And please come visit. Okay, thank you.
Well, we got a little garden in our backyard, and we eat all summer what we can. What we can